Welcome to Data Protection Strategies Leveraging the Cloud. This four-part webcast series will provide you with valuable insights for ensuring your organization's data are protected and recoverable. The focus of this series is on your on-premises technology, not on your cloud-based technology. In episode 1, As a Service at Your Service, we talked about as-a-service strategies, including disaster recovery as a service and backup as a service, and the advantages these technologies bring to you. In episode 2, Double Click into DRaaS, we dove deeper into disaster recovery as a service and discussed options for the targets of your replication. In the previous episode, BaaS, Not Your Grandfather's Backup, we examined backup as a service offerings and some of the considerations you will need to make when choosing a BaaS path. In the final episode in this series, Clear Expectations, we will guide you through some of the complexities of these solutions and how to set proper expectations with your business colleagues. It's as easy as a few clicks to set up. Easy compliance. Effortless disaster recovery. Disaster recovery at the push of a button. If your executive team spends any time thinking about data protection strategies like disaster recovery, backups, or security, first, count yourself lucky. They are at least thinking about the importance of your data. However, if they spend any time searching and reading about these topics, it's no wonder they have an unrealistic understanding of just how protected you may be and how fast you may be able to recover. Many times, we are our own worst enemy. Recovery in a few hours? Yeah, we can do that. All the while crossing our fingers behind our backs in hopes our secret never gets exposed. As a CIO, I used to cringe every time I heard one of our developers say, "Oh, I can add that functionality in a couple of hours." A couple of hours? Really? Does that include the time to research the change, design the change, code the change, test the change, including unit testing, systems testing, regression testing, user acceptance testing, and then processing the change through change management, migrate the change, and validate that all went well in production? Even the smallest change is complex. When you think in terms of backing up or recovering your data, the complexity is exponential. This series has been about data protection strategies using the cloud. So let's focus our attention on disaster recovery and backups. In the second episode of this series, Double Click into DRaaS, we talked about one of the most misunderstood terms in disaster recovery, the Recovery Time Objective, or RTO. Let's start there. We have found a significant disconnect in the way some IT pros define RTO and the way some of your business colleagues would define it. Contrary to the belief that the RTO clock ends when a server is operational, or even when an application is started, RTO is actually defined as the amount of time between the event causing the disruption and when the application or applications are usable to conduct the business of the organization. Let's unpack that a bit. The amount of time between the event causing the disruption. You should note that this may not be when you were alerted to the disruption. Just because you don't know about the disruption doesn't mean the clock hasn't started clicking. For example, a user inadvertently deletes a file. They may spend 15, 20, 30 minutes trying to find the file before they call the service desk and ask for it to be restored. From their perspective, the disruption started when the file went zap. Now, when does the timer end? When it is usable to conduct the business of the organization. Let's think about recovering a server running a single application. You've recovered the server and it is booted up. Does the clock stop? No. Let's say you start the application. Does the clock stop? No. Now you tell the end user, still no. The clock doesn't stop until the application and its data have been verified by the user and they confirm they are able to conduct business. Remember my developer example earlier. Just like a code change doesn't mean you are done, neither does rebooting a server or starting an application. It must be tested and verified. Think how complex this gets when that application integrates with other applications, and those integrations need to be verified as well. There is no such thing as a 15-minute disaster recovery. Other aspects that add to the complexity of recovery and therefore impact your RTO include application tiering, dependencies that impact boot sequencing, the number of virtual machines, the number of servers, and as we just saw, integrations with other applications. You also have to consider your legacy applications. How many workloads do you have running on non-x86 machines? Ensuring those applications are recovered, fully validated, fully integrated, and accessible can add significant time to your recovery efforts. I'd like to introduce you to two terms we here at InterVision use quite often when we talk about disaster recovery: true RTO and recovery waves. True RTO. Essentially, true RTO encompasses all of the complexity and all of the time involved to hand an application, a group of applications, or an entire data center back to your colleagues in the business, and they are able to fully conduct business in a live production environment. That is the RTO you want to communicate to the rest of the business when you talk about restoring or recovering your data. Recovery waves. Imagine you have 100 virtual machines, and when you tiered your applications, you put them all in the same recovery tier. The technology exists that would allow you to restore all 100 virtual machines simultaneously. But would you want 100 VMs all coming online at about the same time? How would you verify them? Even if you could verify them quickly and efficiently, how would your end users validate and verify them all at the same time? It would be chaotic. Leveraging the recovery wave concept, you would break those 100 VMs into manageable chunks of, say, 5, 10, 20 virtual machines at a time. Once you validate a chunk and turn them over to the end users to validate, the next chunk would begin to recover. With tiering and recovery waves, you can better manage your portfolio of applications so everything is brought back online in an orderly fashion. Arm yourself with what we have covered thus far, so when someone says, "Well, I saw an ad about easy peasy recovery, and it says I can recover everything in 15 minutes. You can counter that claim with the details of what it really takes to recover. That brings us to having an actual conversation with your executives about data protection and data security. I can't tell you how many times I have heard, "I told them about the risk. They didn't want to spend the money." I hear it from IT leaders all the time. Heck, I was probably guilty of saying it myself a time or two earlier in my career. On the other side, I hear from CEOs and CFOs, "They never told me about the risk." There is a disconnect. Perhaps this stems from our RTO conversation earlier and the IT leader saying, "We can recover in 8 hours," all the while crossing their fingers behind their backs. Or perhaps it stems from the fact we are speaking different languages. If your budget presentations talk in terms of routers, switches, and firewalls, Or worse yet, Cisco ISR 4321s or Cisco Catalyst 9400s and Cisco Firepower 9300s, or is filled with acronyms like AV, DLCP, IAM, or even DRAS and BaaS. You may be talking, but you are not communicating. You have to speak the language of your business. You have to be the translator. Data protection is one of the top concerns of CIOs everywhere. It's what keeps us up at night. We have all the responsibilities, but we are not the data owner. Our job is to work with the data owners to put together a compelling story for the CFO, COO, and CEO. How do they look at data? How do they think about data protection? Steve Dirks of Inspire Business Experts describes the way most executives think in terms of assets, value and risk tolerance, mitigation and protection, and risk sharing. What are the assets of your organization? Where are they? Who owns them? Who owns what data assets in your company? What value do they provide to the business, tangible and intangible? What is the risk to the business if the asset is lost, stolen, or held for ransom? Think of risk in terms of probability and severity. What is the organization's tolerance for risk? Is it a roll the dice type of company, or is it very conservative when it comes to risks? In other words, what can you afford to lose? You could lose more than just data, reputation, market share, your job. What are the strategies and tactics needed to protect the asset or to mitigate the risk? Is there an opportunity to share the risk through an insurance policy? What are the terms of that policy, and do you satisfy them? You can use these questions to guide your conversation with the executive team. Listen carefully to the language they use. Adopt this language when talking with them, and your communication will be much more effective. Remember, you have to explain complicated technology and interdependencies to non-technical colleagues. It is your job to adapt to their communication needs, not the other way around. Your call to action after listening to this episode is simple. Start the conversations today. Don't wait until it's budget time or until you have had a compelling event. Armed with the language of the business, you will be able to cut through the hype and explain the complexities of your environment, and, most importantly, you will be able to set clear expectations with your business colleagues no matter your organization's appetite for risk. Before we end this episode, I'd like to provide an overview of InterVision and our award-winning DRAS and BaaS solutions. Many of you are on a cloud journey, or you're at least contemplating one. As a former CIO, the numbers that jump out to me from this slide are the over 200 technical cloud certifications and the 125 certified engineers. This speaks to the depth and breadth of our expertise. At InterVision, we live at the intersection of the right premises, the right technology, and the right model. And we mean right for you. It is that intersection that enables our transformative approach so that you can realize your strategic IT vision. Our DRAS solutions are backed with the industry-recognized recovery assurance process. It is this process that enables you to sleep well at night, knowing your data are protected. It begins with your business requirements, continues with joint engineering, and then enters the iterative cycle of test, update, test, and update. We extend this assurance to provide you with resiliency and availability from anywhere to anywhere. On-premises to on-premises. On-premises to hosted. Hosted to hosted. on-premises to public cloud to public cloud, along with a myriad of cloud availability options. No matter your recovery objectives and budget, we have a solution to meet your needs. DRAS Run for recovery in seconds to minutes. DRAS Ready for recovery in minutes to just a handful of hours. And DRAS Restore for those important applications that need to be recovered but can sustain an outage of 24 to 48 hours. We do all of these on AWS, Azure, or our own hosted cloud. Our BaaS provides you with low-cost cloud backups of your precious data. These backups can be stored in AWS, Azure, our hosted cloud, or a combination of all of those. This concludes our 4-part webcast series on data protection leveraging the cloud. If you missed the prior episodes, we encourage you to listen to them today. There will be links in the show notes to the other 3 episodes. Until next time, this is Jeff Tunn, InterVision's Strategic IT Advisor. Thank you very much for listening.